I found the photo by accident. While scrolling on my phone during an endless night, there they were. My parents and my sister Amber, all smiling, holding champagne flutes, with fancy first-class seats in the background. The caption read, "Starting our dream vacation, Miami luxury." The same trip that had been canceled 3 weeks earlier because money was tight. I grew up hearing different versions of the same phrase. Connor, you need to understand that we can't have everything we want. That lesson never seemed to apply to my little sister. When I turned 13, I got my mom's used cell phone. When Amber turned 13, she got the latest iPhone. My graduation present was a wristwatch that my dad only wore sometimes. Hers? A trip to Europe. I learned early on that the Lambert household had two different standards. When I was 16, I saved money over 2 summers working at the local grocery store to buy a used car. Amber got a brand new SUV for her birthday when she turned the same age. "Your sister needs to be safe on the roads," my mom explained, as if my safety was less important. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. "We are so proud of you, son. This independence shows your character," my dad would say while signing the check for another semester of Amber's photography classes, her third hobby that year, which she would drop a few weeks later. At 20, I left home to attend a state university on a partial scholarship. I worked 2 part-time jobs on top of my decent grades. On the few Sundays I visited home, I'd hear how Amber was finding her way at 17, trying different interests and changing courses based on her mood. Today, at 28, I have built a stable career in finance. Amber, at 25, still lives in the room she decorated as a teenager, works occasionally at a boutique when she feels like it, and has her bills paid by our parents. 2 months ago, my dad called me in a heavy tone. "Connor, we have to cancel the family trip this year. Business is rough, the economy isn't helping. You know how it is, right? You've always been the most understanding." I agreed over the phone and offered to help financially, but my offer was politely turned down with a, "We just don't want to be a burden to you, son." That first-class photo changed everything. It wasn't just about the trip itself, it was the confirmation of decades of suspicions. The truth I had tried to ignore for years was now plain in bright pixels. I wasn't part of the equation. I never was. The morning after I discovered it, I went to my parents' house without warning. I expected to confront them, but when I got there, only my mom was home. Amber had gone to the mall, and my dad was at the golf club. "Connor, what a nice surprise," my mom said as she gave me a quick hug. "Want some coffee?" We sat in the kitchen. I didn't bring up the photo right away. I wanted to see how far the lie would go. "How was your weekend?" I asked casually. "Quiet. Your dad and I got plenty of rest, you know how it is." She smiled as she stirred her coffee. "And that family trip? Is it still canceled?" My mom hesitated for a second. "Yeah, unfortunately. These are tough times for everyone. Really tough," I agreed. "That's why I was surprised to see the photos from Miami." Her smile froze. After an awkward silence, she let out a forced laugh. "Oh, that? It was just a weekend. We scored a last-minute deal, unbeatable prices. We were going to call you, but we knew you'd be busy with work. You always are, right? Maybe if you worked less, you could enjoy small luxuries like these too." That was the moment something broke inside me. It wasn't just the favoritism or the lie. It was the casual cruelty, the habitual manipulation that she wasn't even aware of. I decided it was time to dig deeper. I left my parents' house determined to uncover the truth. It wasn't just about a secret trip. It was about a pattern of behavior that had been going on for decades. On the way home, I called my Uncle Kevin, my dad's older brother. We had always been close, maybe because he too understood what it was like to be on the fringes of our parents' attention. "Uncle Kevin, I need to ask you something straight up. Have my parents borrowed money from you recently?" His silence said enough. "How did you find out?" he finally asked. "Then it's true," I confirmed. "How much?" $25,000, about 3 months ago. They said they were having money problems, that they might lose the house if they couldn't cover some debts. I got worried, Connor. They're my brother and sister-in-law. I felt my stomach drop. 3 months ago was when they bought Amber's new car. "Did they mention when they'd pay you back?" "William said it would take at least a year. I guess tough times require family sacrifices. Sacrifices that apparently didn't include first-class trips or expensive gifts for Amber." I explained the secret trip to my uncle and showed him the photos I'd found on social media. "My God," he murmured. "I can't believe William would do that. I took money from my kids' savings to help them out." That's when a terrible intuition struck me. "Uncle Kevin, did they borrow money from anyone else in the family too?" "I don't know, but Your grandma Dorothy mentioned something about helping your dad a few weeks ago. You should talk to her. That same night, I visited my grandma. At 82, Dorothy was still sharp and strong, living alone in the same two-story house where my dad grew up. When I mentioned it, she hesitated at first, embarrassed to talk about money, but eventually confirmed it. My parents had borrowed $30,000, claiming they had mortgage and medical expenses. I thought it was weird because your dad had just mentioned he got a bonus at work, Grandma said. But when a mom can help her kid, you don't ask too many questions. I left her house with a queasy feeling. My parents were systematically taking money from the family while living a luxurious lifestyle that they hid from everyone. I had to find out just how far this went. Over the next 2 weeks, I discreetly talked to other relatives. The list of loans kept growing. Aunt Sarah, $15,000. My cousin Jake, $10,000. Even my godmother Susan, who lived on a modest pension, had lent $8,000 to my parents in the past 6 months. All with similar stories of financial emergencies, all requested without witnesses, all with vague promises of repayment. One night, I organized all the information into a spreadsheet. The total was scary, more than $120,000 in family loans over the last year. With my finance background, I analyzed the spending patterns visible on social media. New furniture, home renovations, trips, expensive gifts for Amber, all added up to about the same amount. It wasn't a coincidence. I shared my findings with Uncle Kevin, who was horrified. "This isn't just thoughtlessness, Connor. It's fraud," he finally said. "They're deliberately deceiving the family to fund a lifestyle they can't afford." "What should I do?" I asked, feeling torn between family loyalty and outrage over what I had discovered. "It's not about what you should do," he replied firmly. "It's about what we as a family need to do. Everyone deserves to know the truth." We decided to set up a family meeting the following Sunday, under the guise of celebrating Grandma Dorothy's birthday. We made sure my parents would be there, along with everyone affected by these fraudulent loans. The tension inside me grew with each day closer to the meeting. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early at Grandma's house to help with preparations. Though honestly, I needed to calm my nerves. Uncle Kevin arrived shortly after, followed by the other relatives. No one except us two knew the real reason for the get-together. When my parents arrived with Amber, they looked nonchalant. My mom brought a small box of chocolates for Grandma, while my dad chatted animatedly about how the real estate market was finally improving for his businesses. After lunch, once everyone was gathered in the living room, Uncle Kevin asked for a moment of attention. He got straight to the point, explaining the real reason behind the meeting, while I handed out copies of the spreadsheet detailing all the loans. "We're here because we discovered something troubling," he began. "William and Patricia have been borrowing large sums of money from several members of this family, saying they're in financial trouble. Yet at the same time, they're living a luxurious lifestyle that they're purposely hiding from us." The silence that followed was deafening. My dad went pale while my mom stared at the papers with an expression of shock that quickly turned to indignation. "This is ridiculous! How dare you expose us like this? Connor, was it you who set this up? Your own flesh and blood?" she accused, her voice trembling. "I'm not setting anything up, Mom. I'm just bringing the truth to light. You lied to me about the family trip. Then I found out you lied to everyone about money," I replied, keeping my voice firm even though I was falling apart inside. "You don't understand anything about finances or the responsibilities we have," my dad interrupted, trying to regain control. "These loans are temporary, part of a bigger plan. A plan that includes first-class trips and a new SUV for Amber while you dip into savings to pay for Uncle Kevin's kids' college," I cut in, showing the photos of the trip on my phone. The tension in the room was palpable. Grandma Dorothy had tears in her eyes, while other relatives swung between shock and anger. Amber looked genuinely confused, as if she really didn't know the extent of our parents' manipulation. "Let's get one thing clear," Uncle Kevin continued. "We're not here to humiliate you. We're here because we're family, and families don't lie to each other like this. We need a solid plan so that everyone gets their money back." My mom suddenly stood up. "This is a lynching. Connor has always been jealous of the attention we give Amber. Now he's turned everyone against us." Patricia, Aunt Sarah, normally the calmest of us, interjected. "I lent you money from my retirement fund when you said you needed it for medical expenses. And in the same week, you posted photos of a weekend at a spa. How do you explain that?" One by one, the relatives began to share their own stories. The pattern was clear and undeniable. My parents tried various tactics: denying, downplaying, justifying, and when nothing worked, attacking. You don't understand the pressure we're under. We need to keep up appearances, maintain a certain standard for all of us. My dad finally exploded. And now our own son is exposing us like we're criminals. They're not criminals, I replied calmly. They're manipulators. And that ends today. Uncle Kevin then presented the plan we had put together. A formal document listing all the loans, with clear deadlines for repayment and legal consequences if they weren't met. My parents would have to sell non-essential assets and drastically cut back their spending. You can't be serious, my mom said in disbelief. William, say something. My dad looked defeated. What do you want me to say? That I messed up? Fine, I messed up. But you didn't have to turn this into a public spectacle. This isn't a spectacle, Grandma Dorothy said for the first time. This is a moment of truth. And the truth hurts, son, but it's necessary. The meeting went on for hours, filled with shouts, tears, and accusations. Eventually, Amber left the room, clearly upset at seeing the castle of privileges crumble before her eyes. In the end, there was no emotional reconciliation, only a practical agreement. My parents had to sign the documents prepared by a lawyer, committing to a repayment plan for all the family members who had been deceived. While the relatives dispersed, I stayed behind to help Grandma Dorothy clean up. My parents left without saying goodbye. The silence they left behind was heavy, filled with decades of unresolved resentments now cruelly exposed. You did the right thing, Connor, said Grandma, squeezing my hand. It wasn't easy, but it was right. I nodded, though I wasn't as sure as she was. I had exposed my own parents, destroyed their image in front of the whole family. No matter how justified it was, the weight of it was crushing. The next week, Uncle Kevin and I hired a lawyer to finalize the documents. We compiled all the evidence: bank transfers, text messages, emails, photos from social media. Everything that proved both the loans and the lifestyle our parents maintained while claiming to be broke. The lawyer, Dr. Lawrence, got straight to the point. This is a clear case of fraud by misrepresentation. In court, it would be easy to prove. However, I understand you prefer to settle this within the family. Exactly, I confirmed. We don't want to sue our parents. We just want to make sure everyone gets their money back. Well, this agreement has the same legal force as a court ruling, he explained, showing us the documents. If your parents don't stick to the payment schedule, any one of the family creditors can take them to court based on this contract. 3 days later, we got word that my parents had put their vacation house up for sale, a concrete first step to come up with the necessary money. Maybe they were finally beginning to understand just how serious the situation was. I was in my apartment, going over the final details of the agreement with Uncle Kevin on the phone, when I received a message from my mom. Can we talk? Just the two of us. Riverside Cafe, tomorrow at 10. I showed the message to my uncle. Be careful, he warned. Your mom is an expert at emotional manipulation. She's going to try to make you feel guilty, turn you against all of us. I know, I replied, but I need to hear what she has to say. You're stronger than you think, Connor. Just don't let her make you doubt the truth you already know. The next day, I got to the cafe 10 minutes early. I picked a table at the back, away from the entrance so we could talk without interruptions. When my mom walked in, I immediately noticed the change. No fancy clothes or jewelry. She was in a simple gray sweater and jeans, her hair tied up in a plain bun, no makeup. The perfect image of a mom in trouble. Connor, she said softly as she sat down in front of me. Thank you for coming. I nodded, not saying anything, waiting for her to show her cards. You must hate me now, she started, looking at her hands. And maybe I deserve it. But I want you to know that everything your dad and I did was for the good of the family. What family, Mom? The one that includes me, or just the one you show on social media? She sighed. You've always been so hard on yourself. So inflexible. Since you were a kid. Amber is different. She needs more support, more structure. You've always been independent. Don't confuse independence with abandonment, I shot back. I became independent because you never gave me a choice. Is that what you really think? That we abandoned you? Connor, we gave you all the tools to succeed. And look at you now. A respected professional, financially stable. Thanks to you, not in spite of you, I interrupted. And this conversation isn't about my childhood. It's about how you deceived the whole family while living like kings. My mom lowered her voice and leaned forward. Your dad is devastated, you know. He can barely face himself in the mirror. 40 years building a reputation, and now everyone sees him as a cheater. And isn't that what he is? I asked directly. Things aren't that simple, she whispered, her eyes welling up. We made mistakes, yes. We got carried away. But did you really need to humiliate your own parents like that? In front of the whole family? I felt guilt starting to eat at me, just as Uncle Kevin had warned. I took a deep breath, remembering the evidence, the lies, years of manipulation. What do you want, Mom? Why are we here? We want a second chance, Connor. This agreement you and your uncle came up with, it's impossible. We'd have to sell almost everything and start from scratch. At 60, that's not easy. You should have thought about that before borrowing money you couldn't pay back. She took my hand, her eyes pleading. I'm asking this of my son, not as the family enforcer. Can't we find a middle ground? Something that allows us to keep some dignity while fixing this? For a moment, I almost gave in. It was my mom sitting there, the woman who, despite it all, brought me into this world, who took care of me when I was sick, who, though rarely, had moments of genuine affection. Then I remembered the photo that started it all. The blatant lie, the cruel comment about me working harder, the endless times I was sidelined, ignored, brushed aside, the elderly family members whose savings were drained to support our parents' lifestyle. I pulled my hand away. The agreement stays as it is. You're lucky no one is suing you. Do you really hate us that much? She asked, a tear escaping. I don't hate you, Mom. I just stopped pretending that you're different from who you really are. I left the cafe with an unexpected emptiness. I had stayed firm, but my mom's devastated look stayed with me as I drove home. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if exposing everything publicly had really been necessary. Another part of me kept remembering decades of manipulation and favoritism, the money extorted from elderly, vulnerable relatives, the lies told so casually. The next day, my dad called me. I didn't answer. He left a short voicemail. His voice sounded strangely older. Connor, we need to settle this like adults. Call me when you can. I didn't call back. Instead, I reviewed the documents with the lawyer once more and sent them formally to my parents. Dr. Lawrence assured me that everything was in order and that if they refused to sign, we would have clear legal options. It felt surreal dealing with my own parents as adversaries in a legal negotiation. 2 weeks went by without any direct contact. Through Uncle Kevin, I learned that my parents had sold one of their cars and put some valuable items up for sale. They also went quiet on social media. No new photos, no updates on trips or purchases. Amber, on the other hand, posted a long indirect rant, clearly aimed at me, about envious family members who destroy homes. I didn't reply. On a Wednesday, I received a formal envelope containing the documents signed by my parents, along with an initial payment schedule. No personal note, no apology, just their cold signatures in the designated spaces. Uncle Kevin got the first payment the next day, a silent bank transfer confirming that, at least for now, they were sticking to the agreement. They're really doing it, I commented to my uncle on the phone, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. They had no choice, he replied. The alternative would have been worse. Do you think we'll ever have a normal relationship again? There was a pause on the other end. Time heals a lot, Connor, but some wounds leave permanent scars. The important thing is that you don't carry guilt for something you didn't cause. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, thinking about every situation that brought me to this point. I remembered my childhood, not just the moments of rejection, but also the rare moments of genuine family connection. A Christmas when I was 8 and my dad taught me how to set up the little electric train I got as a present. A summer afternoon when my mom made lemonade and the three of us, me, her, and Amber, played cards on the porch while waiting for a storm to pass. They were little islands of normalcy in an ocean of favoritism and emotional neglect. Enough to make me question things, but not enough to erase the bigger reality that I had grown up feeling like a stranger in my own family. A week later, Grandma Dorothy invited me to dinner. When I arrived, I noticed she had made my favorite dish, lasagna with homemade sauce, a recipe she reserved for special occasions. "How are you handling all of this?" she asked directly as we served dessert. "Honestly, I don't know," I confessed. "Sometimes I feel like I did the right thing, and other times I wonder if I destroyed my family out of spite." Grandma placed her hand on mine. Her hands were thin, marked by time, but still strong. "Let me tell you something about your dad when he was a kid," she said. "William was always charming, always knew how to get what he wanted. From a young age, he learned to manipulate situations in his favor. Your grandpa and I tried to correct him, but he was so convincing that we often let it go. It was easier to give in than to confront him." She paused, her eyes lost in memories. "When he met your mom, I saw the same pattern repeat. Two manipulators who found each other and reinforced each other's behavior. When you were born, I hoped that fatherhood would change him. For a while, it seemed to work, but old habits die hard. And Amber? I asked. Amber is a product of the environment they created. She doesn't know any other way to be except to be the center of attention, to always get what she wants. I don't blame her. She was programmed that way. And me? How did I escape all that? Grandma smiled, a mix of pride and sadness. You've always been different, Connor. Even as a little kid, you had an innate sense of justice. Do you remember when you were 6 and returned the extra change you got at the candy store? Or when you shared your toys with that new kid in the neighborhood? Your spirit never really fit into the world your parents created. Her words touched something deep in me. I had never thought of it like that. That my exclusion from the family dynamic might not just have been rejection, but also a fundamental mismatch of values. What do you think will happen now? I asked. Your parents will stick to the agreement because they have no choice. Amber will eventually have to grow up and find her own way. And you, my dear, will have to decide what kind of relationship you want with them, if you even want one. I don't know if I could cut ties completely, I admitted. No one is asking you to do that, but you can set clear boundaries. Conditional relationships are perfectly acceptable when the other party has shown they don't deserve unconditional trust. In the following months, my parents strictly followed the payment schedule. Uncle Kevin regularly reported that the deposits came in on time, not just for him, but for all the other family members. My dad had to sell his stake in a real estate venture, and my mom went back to working part-time at a local real estate agency, something she hadn't done in over a decade. Through occasional updates from relatives and the few posts on social media, I noticed that my parents were living much more modestly. They sold the vacation house, traded the luxury car for a basic model, and completely stopped taking extravagant trips. Amber apparently landed a full-time job at a department store, something I never thought I'd see. On a Thanksgiving holiday, 4 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected invitation. My mom sent a simple message. We're organizing a family dinner. It would mean a lot if you could come. I checked with Uncle Kevin before replying. What do you think? Is it a trap? I don't think so, he replied after a moment. Your grandma will be there, along with some other relatives. I really think it's a genuine attempt to rebuild bridges. I decided to accept the invitation, though I was nervous. When I arrived at my parents' house, I immediately noticed the changes. The extravagant decor had given way to a simpler atmosphere. Several of the expensive pieces of furniture were gone, probably sold to help with the payments. The dinner was strange, filled with superficial conversation and awkward attempts at normalcy. Amber was quiet, avoiding eye contact for most of the evening. My dad looked older, his usual confidence replaced by a caution I'd never seen before. My mom tried desperately to keep up appearances, offering food and asking polite questions about my work and personal life. After dinner, when the other guests gathered in the living room, my dad called me into his now very sparse office, with empty shelves where expensive art used to hang. I wanted to talk to you privately, he said, closing the door behind him. First, I want you to know that we are fully sticking to the agreement. Everyone will be compensated as promised. I know, I replied. Uncle Kevin keeps me updated. He nodded, running his hand through his now noticeably graying hair. Look, Connor, I'm not going to pretend I completely understand why you did what you did. But after a lot of thinking, and a few therapy sessions that your mom insisted we do, I'm starting to see how our actions over the years might have seemed to you. I was surprised to hear him mention therapy, something my parents had always mocked as something for weak people. I'm not asking you to forget or forgive overnight, he continued. I just want you to know that we're trying to change. It's late, I know, probably too late to fix some of the damage. But we're trying. I studied him carefully, looking for signs of the usual family manipulation. But what I saw was something different. A broken man beginning to recognize the wreckage he had caused. I appreciate you saying that, I answered cautiously. But it's gonna take time. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I know. He paused as if choosing his next words. Your mom is gonna have a harder time with this. She still resents you for exposing us like that. But she's trying, in her own way. And Amber? Amber is adjusting. It's the first time she's facing real consequences. It isn't easy for her. I nodded, understanding perfectly. I didn't do this to punish anyone, Dad. I did it because I was tired of the lies. I get that now, he replied. And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. When I left the office, I found my mom waiting in the hallway. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. "Thanks for coming today," she said formally. "Thanks for the invitation," I replied in the same tone. There was an ocean of unspoken words between us, issues that might never be completely resolved. But we were there, in the same space, breathing the same air, trying, awkwardly, to find our way forward. In the months that followed, I kept limited contact with my parents. Occasional lunches, brief messages, and appearances at family events. It wasn't the warm relationship I'd imagined having with my parents as a kid, but it was real, based on who we really are, not on fantasies or manipulations. Eventually, Amber came to talk to me honestly. I found out she wasn't completely aware of our parents' financial manipulations, though she admitted she had noticed the favoritism over the years. "I always knew I was treated differently," she confessed, "but it was easier not to question it. I guess that makes me a part of it too." "You were a child, Amber. You grew up in the environment they created." "But I'm not a child anymore," she replied with a maturity that surprised me. "And I need to take responsibility for the adult I've become." Seeing my sister start to develop self-awareness was perhaps the most unexpected result of all this. A year after the confrontation, every family member had received at least half the money they were owed. My parents continued living more modestly, seemingly adapting to the new reality. Family gatherings, though still tinged with tension, had become more genuine, without the facade of perfection my parents had always tried to maintain. One evening, sitting on the balcony of my apartment, I thought about everything that had happened. Had I done the right thing by exposing my parents? The answer wasn't clear. I had caused pain, awkwardness, and rifts. But I had also sparked the truth, responsibility, and maybe even growth. Looking at the stars that night, I realized I will never have the family I dreamed of as a kid. I will never be the favorite son. I will never have parents who naturally put my well-being first. I will never experience that unconditional trust many take for granted. But I have something that might be even more valuable: the truth. An imperfect, but honest relationship. Clear boundaries that protect my integrity, and the certainty that I broke a pattern that, if left unchecked, could have lasted for generations. I don't know what our family dynamic will be like from here, whether my parents will continue changing or eventually fall back into their old habits. Whether Amber will be able to build an independent and meaningful life. Whether one day we'll be able to talk about the past without defenses or accusations. What I do know is that I don't regret having chosen the truth, as painful as it's been. Because living in a comfortable lie isn't really living. It's just existing in an illusion, surrounded by cardboard walls that one day, inevitably, will crumble. And when that day comes, like it did for my family, it's better to be on the truth side, even if it's the loneliest side. The family betrayal I exposed wasn't just about money, favoritism, or specific lies. It was about the most fundamental betrayal: denying reality in favor of a convenient story. The refusal to see and accept people as they really are, with all their flaws and limitations. By confronting this betrayal, I not only changed my family's dynamic, I changed myself. I stopped being the son who desperately sought approval and became the man who chooses integrity over comfort. It wasn't an easy or complete transformation, but it was genuine. And I found out that genuineness is the only foundation on which true relationships can be built. If I had to do it all over again, would I do it differently? Maybe I would have approached the situation more gently, with a better understanding of what shaped my parents. Maybe I would have sought professional help before organizing a public confrontation. But I do not regret the essence of my decision: choosing the truth, even when it hurts, over the lie, even when it's comfortable. And that, maybe, is the most important lesson I learned on this whole journey: that the truth, as hard as it is to face, is the only path to freedom. Not just freedom from the control or manipulation of others, but freedom from the prisons we build for ourselves when we accept living in fantasy worlds. My story doesn't have a happy ending in the traditional sense. There were no tearful hugs of reconciliation, no dramatic epiphanies where everyone admitted their mistakes and changed overnight. Instead, there is an ongoing, imperfect, uncomfortable but real process of people trying to find a new way to coexist after the collapse of illusions. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. And maybe that's even better than any fairy tale ending, because it's real, and the truth I discovered is the only gift that's really worth giving, to others and to ourselves.